Hello everyone and welcome. Today I'm going to be unboxing this fantastic item from Canada. So I purchased this on eBay and it came in this big cardboard box. So you can see it's got lots of labels on it because it's come through customs here in the city that I live. And basically it's a hard drive from the 1980s. It's something made by a company called the Plus Development Corporation, and it's a 20 megabyte hard drive, but it's a hard drive on a controller card, so it will go into an old 1980s era PC. So let's get to it. Let's start unboxing this. It's already been opened a bit because customs wanted me to open it, but we'll be able to have a look and see what's inside. So this is what was inside that box. It's a HardCard 20. As I said, it's made by the Plus Development Corporation, and it says in the front the easy to use 20 megabyte hard drive on a plug-in card. And if we just take a look around the box, there's a picture of the hard drive on each side, and according to the information on the side of the box, this should work on an IBM PC XT, and a later version of the IBM, some compact computer, and an AT&T and an Olivetti. Well, we're actually going to try it in some different computers today. We're going to try it in an Amstrad PC 1512, which is an XT class machine, and then a PC 1640, which is a slight upgrade of the PC 1512, but it came a little bit later. And we'll also try it in an original IBM PC XT 5150 and see how that goes. So according to the documentation here, I'm a bit worried about it already in terms of the IBM PC, because it says if your system is an older computer with a 64 kilobyte motherboard, you may need to upgrade the BIOS ROM on the CPU board. So this is going to be a problem, I think, for the IBM XT, because that motherboard really has 64K. Of course I have 640K in the machine at the moment, but that's with an expansion card. So just having a look over here, it says this drive was made in 1986 by the Plus Development Corporation. So let's get this box open and have a look at what's inside. So it looks like there's some kind of foam tray in here, so we'll just pull that out and we'll take a look at what's in there. So it looks pretty neatly packed. We've got a sticker here. It's a decal, and it says the decal above will let people know that your PC is supercharged with a hard card. Affix it to the front panel of your computer. Affix the decal below to the reinstallation diskette that is created during hard card installation. Okay, nice. Then we have, looks like a warranty booklet. Let's take a look here. So, yeah, I don't think I'll be bothering to send that in. Next up we have the installing application software onto HardCard. So maybe there's a disk or something in here. Oh no, it said on the box that the software's on the hard drive. So yeah, I see. Oh, wait a sec. This is not for installing the hard drive. This is for installing things like Lotus and DBase. Well, I guess if you didn't know how to do that, you probably wouldn't be getting a hard drive. But anyway, there's that. Then there's this one, which I assume is the main installation manual. Yeah, installation reference. And it looks like installing HardCard into your personal computer. And oh, it's got pictures. How to install into an IBM. Looks like there's a jumper that we have to set. There's some information about installing into compact computers, and then how to load DOS onto the hard card. Then I guess there's here's the chapter about the software that's on the hard card, and there's stuff about error messages, Oh yeah, error messages and diagnosis of symptoms as well. There's another whole chapter on that here. And then some technical tips. Oh, about backup and stuff like that. So that's basically it for the manuals. So then we have the hard card itself. This is the actual item. It's come neatly wrapped in a anti-static bag here. And I guess that's the back side. It's pretty standard. And let's take a look what else is in here. So there's some kind of, this is for an IBM PC. So this is a clip for the front of the card to slide into in the front of your PC. And some other, it says front. I don't know what this piece of plastic is, but I guess it's for some other kind of computer. It's got some little feet on the bottom here which look like they clip into the bottom of some other computer, maybe a Compaq or an AT&T or something like that. And then here, it's another retention clip, I guess, for some kind of PC. I'm not sure which one's for the IBM and which one's, I guess the black one would be for the IBM, maybe this is for another style of PC compatible or something like that. I'm not really sure. So this is a closer look at the card. As you can see, it has a controller on one end here, and then up the other end it just says plus HardCard 20. It's just a hard drive attached to a controller. There's the back of the board there, and you can see that it has an ISA 8-bit ISA connector at the bottom here to plug into a PC, into a slot in the PC. So that's what it looks like. You can see there's a few different chips on there. I don't actually know what all of those do. They look like they're fairly specialized chips. And there's a few other components as well. It's constructed pretty well. What amazes me about it actually is that there are even surface mount components on here. They're not so easy to see on this side, but on this side, all of these are little tiny surface mount components. Surface mount resistors probably all over the back of this board. So that's really quite incredible for 1986.
So the first machine that I want to install it in is this Amstrad PC 1512, which was made in about the same era as the Plus HardCard, and it is an XT class machine. So the first thing I have to do is take out the old hard drive, which is a Tandem model, a completely different model card. I was very surprised when I bought this machine actually that it came with a hard drive. I don't think that the person who sold it to me realized that the hard drive was actually working. And when I take it out, you'll see that it's quite a bit bigger and heavier than the Plus HardCard. And it also looks like it's in much worse condition, but in fact this works perfectly. I've had no problems with it over the years, and it's very reliable. So installing the Plus HardCard is pretty straightforward. Just plug it in and screw it up. I did have to wobble the card around a little bit because I wasn't sure whether it was seated properly, and had to change the tension on the screw so that it was sitting in the slot properly. But it wasn't too much of a problem, so I put the back on the computer, put the monitor back on top, and started it up. Unfortunately, all I got was an error message. Certainly the card was not working on this machine, which was a bit of a surprise because it is an XT machine. So you see here me taking the monitor back off and opening the machine back up, pulling the card back out. I had the idea that maybe for some reason the jumper that's on the hard card needed to be changed. There's a PC and an XT setting. It's not at all clear because on the card it says PC XT. In the manual it talks about whether it's the first or second hard drive in your machine. So I decided to try it in the PC setting, which corresponds to first hard drive, and see if that's the problem. Certainly it is only one drive in the machine at the moment. So I pull it out here, very careful to wobble it from side to side and not damage it in any way. So I changed that jumper over to the other setting. It's the only jumper on the board, so it's really the only shot that I had to get something working on this machine. So slot it back in again, same process, and unfortunately again all I got was error messages. So I was a little bit worried at this point. I decided to try it anyway in the IBM PC XT5150, which you see here. It's an earlier machine, and I immediately realized there's no retention clip in the front, but that's okay. One came with the Plus HardCard, so I clipped that in, and then we were able to put the card into the slot. And unfortunately, this is what happens. So I get a controller error. This is a really bad sign for this card. Past experience tells me that this card is just not going to work. Once you see this error message coming up, there's something seriously wrong. And so I was very disappointed at this point and thought I'd probably have to throw out the card. Well, at least just not get any use out of it. Tried F-disk, but it tells you in German here, yeah, no hard drive found. So no luck with this machine. Try something else. So the next machine I tried was the Amstrad PC1640, which is again another XT class machine. It just has a little bit more memory. It's a year or two later than the 1512, and it's EGA, but otherwise it's pretty much the same machine. And I thought maybe it would have a different BIOS in it that might support these cards. So I slot that in and switch it on, and to my surprise, F-disk actually shows the card. So I started to get very excited at this point, because this is the machine that I really most wanted this card to work in. So I was able to put a partition on. Sorry for the flickering here, that's actually just an interaction between my refresh rate of my camera and the refresh rate of the screen. So I was able to format the drive. It all went through pretty much okay. I did notice as it was formatting that it was slower on some parts of the drive and faster on others, so it didn't seem like it was very reliable. And what I really discovered was that especially at the beginning of the drive and the end of the drive, there were quite a lot of unreliable sectors. And so I think that was part of the reason for why it wasn't formatting in an even way, but you'll see later there was actually another reason for this. But it did go through, and I rebooted the machine to see whether it would work, and I've got the system files on at this point. And so in fact it's not booting from the floppy drive here, it is booting from the hard drive, and yes, we're in. So this is DOS on the Plus HardCard working on the IBM the Amstrad PC1640. 15 minutes later though, not so much good luck. This is what I saw. It's basically just a garbled mess. All of the file names, there's random files and directories have appeared, and they're all just garbled rubbish that's now on the drive. And I haven't really done anything in between except just turn the computer off and on again. And you can see critically that volume label at the top there is just random ASCII characters. I did look them up in an ASCII table, and some of them are not even ones that you can enter in at the keyboard, even with ASCII codes. So this was a problem, in fact. Of course, the first thing I wanted to try was just format the drive again and see what happened. And unfortunately, when you format a drive in DOS, you need to enter the existing volume label. Otherwise, it can't format that volume. But there was no way for me to enter the volume label because of these ASCII characters. I spent a lot of time actually trying to do that, which I don't show here. So another thing I decided to do was to try and change the label on the drive, but unfortunately that just didn't work. There's just no way I can enter that in. So I say delete current volume label yes. When I do the drive, well, that's the A drive. When I do the C drive, you'll see it just doesn't work. And so the drive is going to have to be repaired, unfortunately.
So I want to show you what I did to this drive to try and repair it. It took a while to figure out exactly what was wrong, but the first step, of course, was to just open the drive, and that involves lifting very carefully the black cover off the front of the drive, and then unscrewing the screws in the plate that covers the hard drive itself. And then when we get into the drive, this is what it looks like inside. So you can see it's just a spinning platter with a bunch of heads and so on. And what was actually going wrong with this drive, if I just carefully turn it around here, you can see just down into the drive there, right in the middle portion, around about here, there's a little, it's supposed to be a rubber stop, a black rubber stop, but over the years what's happened is that rubber stop has just turned into black goop. It's not rubber at all anymore. And so what I did first is to get a screwdriver and take some of that goop out, and then I got a bunch of let's say alcohol swabs and just stuck them in there one after the other until I got as much of the black goop out as I possibly could. And then I had to replace the rubber stop, of course, and the way I did that was to get some of this foam material. It's actually sticky on one side, but I super glued it in because this wouldn't stick for very long. So I just put this foam material around that central pin, and what actually happens is the pin itself is used to stop the heads at the extremities of its range of motion. So the heads can't go any further that way, and they can't go any further in the other direction. So it serves a dual purpose at the beginning and the end of the drive. So while I was formatting this drive, I noticed this really odd thing, that if I move the monitor back like this, the formatting stops. The hard drive is somehow not able to read or write to the drive. But when I move the monitor back forward again, everything's fine. And I think this is actually a shielding problem. I think the monitor itself, or the hard drive bay, is not shielded properly, and so there's interference getting from the monitor. I think there's even a little bit of interference with it fully forward, since if I take the monitor off completely, this formatting goes a lot quicker. This is a comparison with the monitor sitting beside the PC, and you can see that it really does tick over very quickly compared to when it was actually sitting on top of the PC. So there's definitely some kind of shielding issue, and I've actually had a look at the bay here and tried pressing down on it in various ways to see whether that is causing some of the issue. Maybe it's some kind of physical thing that the card is not seated properly, but it's definitely nothing to do with that. It's definitely to do with interference coming from this monitor. So I'm just running a scan disk now. Of course I've got the monitor sitting right next to the PC, because otherwise we're going to get interference from the monitor, as we just saw. And in order to minimize the number of bad clusters that we're going to get, what I've done is I've set up a partition on the drive that avoids the first part of the drive and the last part of the drive. I block those off, and that's about, I think, 84% of the drive that we'll be able to use. Now, it's actually quite interesting how the drive determines where the cylinders are, or the tracks if you like, and that is, it has a little glass window inside the drive with little lines scored across it and some kind of optical reader, and as the drive moves the heads back and forth, this little window moves, and so the drive can detect where on the drive it is just by looking at the little marks as they pass by the optical sensor. So it's a very clever little design, and I guess it was an example of, well, mid-80s miniaturization, that they were able to get hard drives which up to that stage had been very large into such a small little box. So we're just going to leave ScanDisk to run now. As you can see, so far nothing bad shows up. The bright yellow in the upper left corner, that's the actual data that I have on the drive. It's just the system files, there's nothing else on them at the moment. But it's going to go through and it's going to write to the drive and then read and check that the data comes off the drive correctly all the way through to the end. And we'll see at the end how many bad clusters we get now that we've marked off those end parts of the drive where there's clearly a problem. I think basically when these drives are manufactured, there's not an even coating of hard drive material, the metallic coating that they put on the drive. There's not an even coating of that all the way across the drive, and so this means that on the inside and outside of the drive you get regions of the drive which are really not in good shape. Well, at least after 35 years they're not in very good shape. And I don't know whether the drive will continue to lose cylinders over time. I don't know how quickly that will happen, but at least for the time being it seems like we have a, like 84% or something of the drive that's actually usable. So that's pretty good. So we'll just let this run here and we'll come back when it's finished. So we're coming up to the end of the ScanDisk now, and as you can see, it seems to have got most of the way through, at least, without finding any bad clusters. Just from the past times I've tried to format, I know that there's some possibly bad clusters around about cylinder 48, which didn't show up in the ScanDisk, but other than that, I think the drive is pretty much right all the way through to the end here. And it looks like we're actually going to get a complete ScanDisk. Yep, no problems in the drive, so there we go. So that was a successful repair. As I say, I don't know how long this is going to last, whether there'll be more cylinders disappear. And I guess the next thing will be to do a test and see if we can boot from the drive and maybe put some files on it and see whether it can hold the files. So these machines are pretty slow to boot up, as you can see. It takes about half a minute, I guess nothing's changed. And there we go, we're booted into DOS on the hard drive. So let's go to the floppy drive, and what I'm going to do is make a directory on the hard drive for DOS. So I'm just copying everything across from a floppy as a DOS floppy, and I'm copying it into a directory on the hard drive just to see whether the hard drive can take files okay. Of course we know that it can by now after ScanDisk, but so I'm just going to have a check now and see if all those files copied across okay. Of course we're just looking at a directory really, but still it's fun to have a look and see, yeah, there they all are. So that's not really much of a test. So what I'm going to do now is put a game on, and what games do you run on a 1986 computer? So I have one here called Grand Prix Circuit. It's an EGA game. It's very slow. It gets about 2 frames a second on this machine. It really was designed for a later machine. But I'm going to give it a go on here, and I know that this game uses the hard drive quite a lot when it's loading up and when it starts up. So we'll be able to see whether or not it's actually working the way we expect. Okay, well you get the idea. That's the Grand Prix circuit game, and it seems to be working absolutely fine, so it looks like we have a working hard drive. So as a postscript, I decided to have a look and see whether it would work in the Amstrad PC1512. So you can actually see in the upper right hand corner of the screen there's a plus flashing. That means that the plus hard card is active. That doesn't happen on the PC1640. And have a look at this, it's actually booted into DOS in the PC1512. So whatever repair that we did to the drive was actually necessary to make it work on this machine. So that's really interesting. It seems like we probably could have had this drive working from the start if it hadn't had that faulty, or that denatured rubber stop in the middle of it. That was actually stopping the heads moving probably, and maybe just moving the card around enough when we put it into the PC1640 the first time is what actually got it to go the first time. Otherwise I probably would have thought this card was just dead entirely. So it's really nice that it works in this computer. So I'm going to try it now in the IBM XT5150 and see whether we have the same story there. Okay, so I have the drive installed in the 5150, so I'm going to switch on the computer and see what happens. So it looks like something is happening. It's now booting from DOS. This is actually just the hard drive, the floppy drive booting the DOS at the moment. So let's see what happens. Unbelievable. Look at that. There we have it. Plus hard drive working on our IBM XT. So it does work in this machine after all. I didn't even need to change the jumper. So there you have it, guys. It works in all three computers, and obviously the reason that it didn't work in the first place was nothing to do with computers or the BIOS or anything like that. It was just simply because the hard drive was denatured after 35 years and needed a fairly simple repair. It did take a few hours and it has to be done very carefully, clean conditions and so on. In fact, in the end I got a sterile alcohol swab and wiped the surface of one of the putters, the one that was facing the top of the drive, just to give it the maximum chance of working. But yeah, it's working, and now I have a 20 meg hard drive. See you later.